What's up, Steelers fans? Welcome back to another episode of Around the Burgh. I'm your host, Mitchell Wolf, here with my co-host, Shane Kubis. Today, we're going to be talking about how the Steelers quarterback situation is rounding into form to some extent, and we'll also start our primer on Steelers free agency. Before we get into that, Shane, how you doing tonight?
Well, I wish we were doing better, or I was doing better. We'll talk about it. Obviously, it's kind of the biggest topic right now. But like a certain player may now be more available for trade, and there's been a lot of talk about them. And I don't really want to
Jimmy
hear it.
Garoppolo, I know.
Yeah, Garoppolo. Yeah. And I just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna hear it, and we need to talk about it. So we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, so we're live on Steelers JTP Twitter and my Twitter as well. But if you're listening to this later, you'll know that the news came out today that Deshaun Watson has been cleared by the grand jury of criminal charges. Now, his civil cases are still pending. It does not mean he is 100% innocent, but essentially, this has basically been the green light for everybody and their mom who's a Steelers fan to say, okay, let's go get Deshaun Watson. And I get it that Deshaun Watson is an excellent quarterback. When he is healthy and playing, he is a top 10 quarterback in this league without question. He's probably a top 5 quarterback in the AFC. With that being said, one, these allegations are still not completely resolved. Like I said, the civil cases are still pending. He still could be found liable, and regardless of that, this hanging over him is still not good. Like Ben Roethlisberger obviously was not convicted of his sexual assault allegations earlier in his career, and those still hang over him to this day. These will hang over Deshaun Watson for the rest of his life. So I don't really understand why Steelers fans are so excited to, be defending another quarterback against these allegations for another 10 years. Maybe not defending, but having to hear these allegations be thrown around for another 10 years. But that's just them, I guess. But the other thing is that acquiring Deshaun Watson would be a crazy move for this team to make, in the sense that they do not have the ammunition to make this move. And that is not just... Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure. Shane was having some technical difficulties.
I'm having some camera difficulties,
okay.
But yeah, I am able to. Yeah, I can still at least talk, so I'll try to fix that. But yeah, there's just no way. Like, I just piggybacking off what you said real quick, since I know you're trying to just kind of see what I was doing.
Yeah.
No, so that's the biggest thing about this, right? Is like, regardless of what you actually feel about Watson's case, and I know I have my feelings, and other people will as well. It's something that's going to be there no matter what, and it's going to follow him, good or bad, for the rest of his career. And it should, realistically, no matter what it is. So it's something we're going to have to deal with as fans and as people that cover the team like we do. It's something that we're going to have to think about no matter what, and it's something we've already had to deal with to, weirdly, a lesser extent, really, with Ben. But just more of that, I don't really have the energy for it. I just don't want to have to do it.
Yeah, and then to return to the other issue is that,
yeah.
So the other, obviously, this was big news of NFL, big week of news in the NFL. Probably the biggest being that Russell Wilson gets traded from the Seahawks to the Broncos, and the Broncos give up 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. They have a pick swap in the 4th and 5th, and they also sent Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris to the Seahawks. And Drew Lock is whatever, but Noah Fant is a good tight end. Shelby Harris is a very good defensive tackle. So you're sending 4 picks, a pick swap, and then 2 good players that'll be starters, plus a backup quarterback. The Steelers. So the other news is that apparently the Texans won at least 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
The Steelers do not have that because you cannot trade 2 years. You can only trade the draft that is approaching and then next year. So they can only trade a first rounder this year and next year because they do not have a third. Let's say that the Texans are willing to budge on that, and they'll say, okay, you got to give us basically the same thing that the Broncos give up. You got to give 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and players. Let's say the Steelers are all right, fine. The players that I think they would probably have to end up giving up would be some kind of amalgamation of Alex Highsmith, Chase Claypool, and then like Dwayne Haskins, and then maybe even another player who's younger and better. And so the point is that, if that trade were to be made, by the time Deshaun Watson got here, the team would be significantly worse,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't have the assets to build a better team around him. So you are not going to, one, you're not going to win in the short term. You're not going to be a contender by acquiring because you're giving up so much. And two, you're not going to win in the long term because you have no draft capital to build a better team around him. So there's really no point to be making this huge swinger for the fences that is going to ruin your chances of winning in the short and long term.
Yeah, it would be one thing if we only had to give up draft picks, because realistically, as much as draft picks are very valuable, obviously they are at the end of the day sort of a crapshoot, depending on especially the later picks. But these picks would be premium picks.
Yes.
We'd be missing out on premium guys that, even if you're looking at picking in the 20s, like we already have done, like we've still done well for the most part with those picks and getting guys that can play. Like, it's something that if you only had to give up picks, it would make more sense because at least you have the team around him currently.
Yeah.
But again, you're not going to be able to do that. You have to include at least a couple impact players from this team that you can't then guarantee you can replace through free agency or through the draft, because now you don't have as much money with his contract coming into play. You don't have as much money on free agency. You don't have as much draft capital to fill the team around him. It could just become a situation kind of similar to what he's already dealt with the Texans, where they couldn't get over the hump because they just couldn't build enough strong enough roster around him.
Exactly. And like, let's say, like, some people are like, oh, like, good, this will give them a chance to get rid of Chase Claypool. All right, cool.
Yeah.
You have Deontay Johnson and Cody White as your receivers. Are you happy about that?
Yeah, and like
There's
whoever
no way
you
you can be.
Yeah, like whoever.
Or it's like,
Frazier,
oh, good, they can
minimum
get rid of
targets you
Devin
can
Bush.
get.
Okay, then your linebackers are Roberts. Well, I don't think Roberts playing his 10. So your linebackers are Buddy Johnson and Ulysses Gilbert III. Congrats. Like, this does not make the team better by any stretch of the imagination. It is insane that people are really thinking this is the solution. Now, if they can by some miracle get him, and they won't. You say, oh, like, because these allegations and he's like less proven, they might be able to get him for less. So the problem is Russell Wilson's 34 and he's only under contract for 2 more years. Deshaun Watson is 26 and a half and he's under contract for 4 more years. At this stage in the game, Deshaun Watson is a significantly better asset, regardless of his allegations, than Russell Wilson is. Deshaun Watson right now is a better quarterback than Russell Wilson is at this age. And I can make the argument that Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback now than Russell Wilson ever was. So
You could, yeah. I mean, you could do that.
It's because the criminal allegations are cleared, even if there is a suspension, which would probably be somewhere in the lane of 6 to 8 games, if I had to guess, based on Ben's past suspensions. You are still going to have to pay more for Deshaun Watson because he is a better, more valuable asset than Russell Wilson is at this stage in his career.
Yes.
So just to invest all that would make the team worse, and it just doesn't make any sense, especially in an AFC where if the Steelers made that trade, they might not be a top 10 team in the conference.
That's the thing, too, that I think people aren't thinking about is, like, as much as the Broncos went ahead and said, listen, we're going to go ahead and try to compete with the teams in our division by going and getting a quarterback that can go blow for blow with these guys. That only works so many times. If the whole conference does that, then it's a crapshoot now. What do we look like? We can't, at this point, trying to get into an arms race with the rest of the AFC isn't going to work right now.
Yeah.
It just isn't. As good as our defense can be, especially if it fill out certain spots on there that we need with the secondary and everything, even if all that happens, it's not a guarantee, even with a quarterback of Deshaun Watson's caliber, that we're even going to make it to the championship game, let alone the Super Bowl. Like, there's just no guarantee of that.
Yeah, I mean, what about the team that was currently constructed last year makes you think they could have won playoff games? Even if they somehow just traded 2 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson and somehow acquired him. You plugged Deshaun Watson in for Ben Roethlisberger. They probably don't beat the Chiefs.
No,
they probably don't beat the Bills. They maybe beat the Titans or the Bengals. Maybe. But those would both be road games, so it's not a guarantee. The Patriots would be a tough game. And like even teams that like the 2 teams that didn't make the playoffs, the Chargers and the Ravens, if those teams are healthy, those are tough games too. Like this is not the time to get into that arms race, because at this point you need to see like what value, and this is what we'll transition into, is what value can you get from quarterbacks that are cheaper that you can acquire for less assets. How can you maximize them by using your draft capital to build a stronger team around them? And then once you have that really strong team built around them, then you can invest in a quarterback with a high draft pick, because people are saying, oh, all these first round picks, they don't matter, and you should trade them. First round picks are where you get good offensive linemen, for what it's worth. There was recently a thing said that you're much more likely to get an all-pro or Pro Bowl offensive lineman if they are picked in the first round than any other round of the draft, because it's just such a crapshoot later on. Like people say the draft is a crapshoot. I totally agree. In day 3, on day 1, those picks are extremely valuable. And you're like, oh, like the Rams traded all their first round picks for all these stars. Yeah, all those stars were first round picks.
This is the
they were all except for Odell Beckham, they were all top 5 picks.
Yeah, this is the disconnect, right? It's like there are certain situations where if you have the right team in place already and you are one major piece away, especially at the quarterback position, that's when you do have the ability to kind of say, okay, let's mortgage the next couple years and go for it now, like the Rams did.
Yeah,
the Steelers aren't there.
Yeah, look at the Rams. They were in the Super Bowl. They were making playoff runs with a great team around Jared Goff. And then they did have the draft capital, specifically the capital, along with swapping a quarterback to make that trade. The Steelers do not have a quarterback to offer the Texans back. Not that any of them will be better than Davis Mills or anything, but
no.
And their roster is still not complete enough because they are weak up, assuming that there's some kind of like, let's say even Stephon Tuitt comes back.
Right.
They still have some issues with linebacker. Their cornerback room is extremely suspect. Their offensive line is bad, and they still need offensive weapons. Like this team is not at the stage of these other teams that we've seen going out and get their big quarterback. Like they're just not there. So, I can't think of a good analogy for this, but the timeline is off. It is not the right time to do this.
That's kind of what this all comes down to, is you can't look at other teams and assume that you can just copy and paste what they did and do it for your own team. The Rams were in a specific situation where they said, okay, we're able to compete nearly for championships with Jared Goff. Clearly, if we can just upgrade the quarterback position a bit and get a little bit more upside there, get somebody who can make more plays whenever things break down, we might have something here. And that's what they went and did. And credit to them, they made it work. But it was a big risk. It was. And it happened to work for them. And maybe it'll still work out for the next couple of years as they try to keep that window open. But not every team can just go and do that. Not every team has, even this was a trade too, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald on their defense, a really good offensive line. Like not every team has all those things in place and even to go ahead and do that.
I would even say like their offensive line isn't great.
Especially this past year, compared to years past, especially, I mean, Whitworth was out for a while. That was a problem. And he was already older and overall, it was good enough where they obviously felt like they could, do that. But again, not every team can do that. The Steelers are not in that place right now, just point blank.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So with that in mind, the other kind of quarterback dominoes are starting to fall. Yes, Aaron Rodgers says he's staying in Green Bay. As you mentioned, Russell Wilson gets traded to the Broncos. Carson Wentz gets traded to the Washington Commanders. So thank God their Steelers aren't getting him.
I was like, oh my God, okay, good. Okay.
And somehow Mitch Trubisky is now the hottest commodity on the market.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because you kind of convinced me, and we've mentioned it before, that maybe he would be a good fit as
a low value investment.
Exactly.
You pay him not too much, and maybe he wins the job. Maybe he does well. But now with the number, I don't know if exact numbers are being thrown around, but it seems like he's the next big reclamation project.
Yeah.
He's the heir apparent to Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz.
Right. Which, I mean, hopefully he can do better than those guys.
Did you see the Emmanuel Acho tweet?
Yeah, the Carson Wentz one.
Oh my God!
This dude's just taking L's left and right for however long now. It's been bad for him.
I really don't think there's a worse take maker in sports.
I don't watch enough stuff anymore to know that for sure. But it'd be hard for me to come up with someone better. At least someone that I think actually is trying to make takes. Like some guys, you could tell they're just saying stuff to say it. With him, I really think that he just is saying this stuff because he believes it, which is not good.
This tweet is, "I'm the guy in the casino at the roulette table who keeps betting the same number until it hits. I'm still betting on Carson Wentz. As long as he has a starting job, I'm placing bets."
He can do that, man. I mean,
wild.
I wouldn't do it in FanDuel.
This is a great reply someone did. Just to make sure I understand, Calvin Ridley's tape makes you think he is throwing games, but Carson Wentz's performance makes you believe in the guy. What a take.
Interesting. Yeah,
there's also the guy who said that legalizing weed for the Olympics would be bad because of javelin throwing.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's how that works. But anyways, with the other things, now those dominoes kind of fallen. I guess the Trubisky domino hasn't fallen per se, but it seems like he's going to go to the Giants because of Brian Daboll is now there.
That would make a lot of sense for them. I mean, in worst case scenario,
and they want to kind of have somebody to maybe push or replace Daniel Jones. It's kind of an odd situation there. But I've seen some Kirk Cousins photoshops flying around with the Steelers. It seems like Jimmy Garoppolo is the betting favorite. It's him. It's between the Steelers and the Colts, I would think, to get Jimmy G. And then you still have the normal free agents of Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Teddy Bridgewater, and now Jacoby Brissett is the one making the rounds.
Yes, I've heard that a lot, and the reasoning makes a lot of sense. I think it was
Mhm.
Corzoa from
Kazora, yeah.
Kazora, yeah. He again, it makes total sense, right?
Mhm.
Because from just a schematic standpoint, from this background with the coaching staff that's there with us right
Mhm.
now, with his time at NC State, all that stuff, I get it. The problem is like, yeah, is he more talented than the guys we have? You could argue, like, I mean,
Yes,
Haskins
he
has
is.
decent talent, but at least that's true. Is he that much better? Probably. I don't know. I mean, if you like him as a guy that's kind of in between what we saw last year with Miami and what we saw with him last time in with the Colts, he's better definitely than what
Mhm.
we have.
Yeah.
But again, he falls in that category of like, how much better are we going to be with him on the team compared to just running it back with what we
Yeah,
got?
I completely agree. He's in the case where it's like, oh yeah, this would be a low investment, but I really don't think there's enough reward there.
That's
Like
right.
there's still a lot of the upside is just kind of not there anymore. So I still think it's gonna be Jimmy G. I know you're not a fan of that move.
Yeah,
You
I'm
want
not,
to
but
go into that a little more, just because
well, for me, it's mostly the fact that I think the guys that are available on the market that could be had for not that much money represent a similar level of play than what we would get
right,
from him, and we don't
sure,
have to give up any capital. That's really what it comes
right,
down to. I
okay,
don't think he's
fair enough.
terrible. He just isn't
Yeah,
good enough for me to be like, yeah, I'll send a day two pick to get him. Like when I could
yeah,
just sign whoever. Like I don't think it's worth it personally.
yeah.
But
I'm not so. He is a free agent after this year,
yes,
and
yeah.
so obviously he has a pretty big cap hit. So that's kind of not ideal.
No, not
Um,
if we want to spend any amount of money, but
exactly.
we'll see.
And so his cap hit is almost $27 million, and I think I checked the Steelers' salary cap; it's like 28. So that would kind of take away all that.
Yeah,
So that might be honestly off the table.
yeah. I would
Which
hope so personally,
yeah,
but
so that kind of brings us back to the free agent guys. Which again, Jameis, Teddy Bridgewater, Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, maybe, and then maybe even Tyrod Taylor or Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton Steelers uniform would be something.
that would be funny. But I don't. Again, I think at this point, to me, like you take one of those first three or four guys you mentioned, right? That's
Mhm.
who you should be targeting on like a 1 year or 2 year small deal for the chance to get it to actually start, right? Like pretty much all those guys should be able to, barring some awful fall into training camp, are going to beat out the guys we have, right? So you
Yeah.
can basically tell them, hey, we're going to pay you. We'll give them some, even if you want to do something with incentives to try to make sure that you can convince them to show up, like something along those lines. Just get them in the building. They'll be better than what we have. And then you take a look at what your options are going to be in the next year or so.
Yeah. And yeah, Jameis is a free agent, but he's with the Saints. So they have some weird cap stuff going on. So I don't really know what to do
Yeah,
about
his
that.
situation's weird. Like I
But
assume he's going to be back there because like what else are they going to do?
yeah. But
Like other
now,
than
so I think that kind of leads me towards Bridgewater or Mariota.
yeah, one of
Because
those two.
Bridgewater is definitely going to want to be out now that Wilson's there. So it's going to be weird. But with that in mind, let's kind of dive into the rest of free agency. So we've talked about quarterback to, to no end, basically. I mean, they need like a bridge backup type to compete with Rudolph and keep the team relatively afloat. Those guys are all kind of in that genre. I know that they've said they want to have four quarterbacks going into next year. I'm really not sure if they do draft a quarterback because I'm not sure that the guys they like will actually be there.
That's kind of my thought process too. Is like, the only thing I think is going to happen either is if they really like a rookie bad enough, we could see some sort of move. I don't expect it, but that would be
With them missing a
yeah.
lot of day three capital, I don't
That's
think
what I'm
that.
worried about. Yeah, like that's kind of part of it too. Is like I think that even if they really like somebody, I think they know that this isn't the class that it's worth giving up premium
Mhm.
picks to move up and do stuff
Yeah.
with. So it's either going to be like a late round flyer type of guy or whatever, just to kind of have somebody on the roster and then sign a veteran or something along those lines.
I'm very surprised that I'm saying this, but I'm kind of coming around on Desmond Ritter.
I'm still not, but I also don't really haven't watched enough of him
I'm
lately to
not
kind
coming
of
around on him
refresh.
as
But
like a first round pick or anything.
right, yeah,
I mean, he probably would be just because it's a quarterback, but like I'm
that's the
not saying
problem.
he's a
Yeah,
first round prospect. Um, but like a lot of people I really respect in this space
I've heard
who know
that
what
a
they're
lot
talking
from yeah.
about, like
Hmm.
really like him. And he's not like he does need to be in a very structured offense. But that structured offense I think fits what Matt Canada wants to do and kind
Yeah,
of
it
fits the
could.
guys that are on the team now. So I if that happened, especially in the second round, I would be like, okay, like I can this is doable. I'd still prefer not to, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So moving on, we'll get into the next kind of set of needs with free agency. So like I said, the Steelers have, I'm going to check it again, but when I checked earlier today, it was $28 million in cap space, and they just signed Miles Killebrew to a 2-year deal to continue to basically be a special teamer, which I'm fine with. He was
He was
he had the
great.
2 punt blocks there, so I'm good with that.
He's a great have on that
Yeah,
side of the ball. So
yeah,
I don't have a problem there.
yeah, exactly. Next one I have is interior offensive line, because I think that they're going to invest money and draft capital there, because they might not need a guy to necessarily replace Kendrick Green, but I think they want somebody to really push him
Yes.
that can be a player down the road, not just a JC Hassenauer who's a pure backup.
Yes.
And I think I've also heard this, that they might want somebody who can push Kevin Dotson, not replace him, but just kind of give him a little fire, because he might have kind of come into last season like, oh, like I've been hearing all this praise, like I'm doing good, and then he gets hurt, and then he's out for a lot of the year. So I also really would like to see them move Dotson to right guard, which is where he played all of college.
That's part of it too. Is like if they do want to do that, then it becomes okay. What free agents can you bring in that are comfortable playing left? Because it seems like a lot of the guys that could be the more premium linemen in free agency seem to play right guard, but primarily. So like that could kind of fluctuate a little bit, maybe. But ideally, if he's more comfortable there, especially, I'd like to play him where he.
And so luckily it's a pretty good free agent interior offensive line class, and that's good because the draft is not so much, especially at center. But like the guys we talked about, Brandon Scherf and Austin Corbett are kind of the 2 big names, especially Scherf, but he's had some injury history, but he could play anywhere along the interior. He might command a lot of money, so I'm not sure. They might try to kind of get a little more of a bargain there with a guy like Corbett, who's been pretty solid for the Rams last few years.
Yeah.
James Daniels is an interesting name. He's played for the Bears.
He's one I like a lot. But the problem is with his best season came last year as a right guard.
Okay,
so if you do want to have Dotson play right guard,
I mean, Dotson can play left guard. I'm fine with that. So,
but that's where I'm saying, like, if they're committed to playing him at right, if that becomes something they want to do, James Daniels can play anywhere in the top 3, like interior 3 spots. But he showed the most last year as a right guard, so it'd be hard for me to want to take him out of there.
And if they want to go more towards what Matt Canada does with a lot of outside zone runs, that's where James Daniels is.
100%.
So that'd be really interesting. Mark Lewinsky and Laken Tomlinson are 2 like older veteran guards who, I think they're both right guards as well. But they're more of a traditional power gap scheme. But they're both they're not like all stars, but they're going to get the job done at least to the level that Trey Turner did last year, and probably better.
Yeah, I like Tomlinson a lot too. I don't know how much money he's going to command because he is older.
He's so he's kind of in that Trubisky thing where I think he might have been like a low value signing, but now his name's kind of picking up some steam.
Yeah,
so
because he's been really good for the Niners since he got there, and he's been a great fit for them. So like realistically, I'm sure they'd like to have him back too. So you might have to kind of compete with them to a certain extent, but. Yeah, he's a guy to look out for. That his money could fluctuate a lot. I'm not sure what his contract's looking like.
Yes, and center's a bit of a weird one because again, there's just not a lot of availability there. Like Ryan Jensen's the name keeps getting thrown around, but he's going to command a lot of money, and he's older. And I think it's interesting. So he's already won a ring. I'm not sure that's really. He's not necessarily going to be chasing that, but
I honestly feel like he could end up back with the Ravens personally.
Yeah.
I think that could happen very easily.
Yeah, I know there's been talk about the Bengals.
Them too.
Help there, and that'd be really good for that team. Ben Jones just got. I think he's being released by the Titans. He'd be interesting.
He'd be a good veteran option. He's at least going to be better than what we've had most likely.
Yeah.
So
Justin Britt was a really good player for a while, but I know he's had a lot of injury
problems lately. Jeez.
And then the other one, Nick Martin, who's another very under the radar player. I think he played for the Raiders this last year, but I don't think he played very much. But he was on the Texans as well.
He was a starter
released
for them.
Him, and that was I think a lot of people were very surprised by him getting released.
Yeah, because he was a starter for them for a while there. Yeah.
He played left tackle for the Raiders a little bit this year. Only 7 snaps, so I don't really know what's going on there.
They must have had some sort of weird injury situation.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but
maybe last guy off the bench in one game for some reason.
Guess.
I don't know. Kind of weird.
But again, like he's a guy that again could be kind of a value center that a guy maybe kind of pushes Kendrick Green. Yeah, I mean Britt started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games for the Texans this last year.
Yeah.
So he's again a little bit older, injury prone, so maybe not the best one to go with that. So that's interior offensive line. Again, I think they're gonna go there with the high draft pick, either in the first or second round.
That's what I expect. Yeah.
But you need to you need new starters at 2 positions, and you need to shore up a third, basically. So invest.
You got to bring in you have to bring in either competition
Yes.
or legit starting caliber players. One of
Yeah.
like at multiple spots, like you said, it can't just be let's sign 3 low level like free agent guys and hope they work out. Like you got to bring in at least one premium player one way or another.
And now they have the money to actually do that, so that's
right. Yeah.
So speaking of money, so corner is a very deep position in this free agency class and in the draft, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because some teams will be like, oh no, we want to get these veteran guys. Other teams will be like, listen, there's plenty of dudes in the draft. We can get them young. We can get them on a lower salary. But there's guys like J.C. Jackson, Carlton Davis, and Stephon Gilmore who are all excellent corners, big man coverage guys. I'm not sure the Steelers are going to, because they're going to have to pay those guys a lot of money. So I'm not sure that they make that big investment with their cap.
Yeah, I feel like I'd like them to sign one of those 3 guys at the top and bring Witherspoon back. That's ideally. If you can do that, corner now in the draft becomes something that you want to try to get, but not something you have to invest in one of the first 3 picks in. Because I think that if you don't do that, you're going to have to invest at least one of those first 3 picks, if not the first pick, possibly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm checking. So J.C. Jackson's market value is 5 years, basically $105 million. So he'd average $21 million a year. So that would just basically.
Yeah, I already hear the Chargers are pretty much all in on paying him whatever he wants to. That's what I've been hearing.
Chargers. So that's the Chargers are just going all in.
I don't blame them one bit for anything they've done, because realistically, right, you're not getting out of the AFC West anytime soon unless you just go for it as best you can, because both of them have very young, the Chiefs and the Chargers especially.
Getting Khalil Mack for a second-round pick
that was
so crazy.
The people that have been bothering me are the ones that are like, is this really what we're doing? We're giving up draft capital for a guy in his 30s that missed time.
Yes.
Like, do you know who really Khalil Mack is? Like, if you watched him play last decade, like
Khalil Mack. He's so good.
It's ridiculous. But whatever.
Yeah. But some other guys a little further. So like Kyle Fuller and Desmond King are 2, and now I'll keep going. So Sidney Jones and Dante Jackson are some other guys.
Dante Jackson's interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, like just really put a lot of speed back into that position that we don't have right now. Like,
and Sidney Jones had a nice year this year. Now that he's
honestly,
healthy, yeah. Kyle Fuller, he had a down year this year, but I love the Fullers. I think they just know how to play football. Desmond King will be a slot guy only.
If you want to salvage Sutton, that's probably your best bet is to keep him there. So.
Now, if you want a cheap slot, you go after Quan Williams.
Yes,
because
he's been really good for them.
That guy is just like a traveling salesman of playing slot corner at a above average level. He'll come into town and he'll get the job done for 1 year.
It feels like he's been around for like how I was gonna say
it up. Yeah,
it feels like 10 years, but I feel like it's not 10
and
years.
And he went to Pitt, right?
I'm
pretty sure he did.
I'm pretty sure he did, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yes, he went to Pitt. He was undrafted in 2014, so actually not
10 years. So not 10 years. Okay, it feels like 10 years.
Yeah, it does.
That's what I was like. I don't think it's 10 years, but not that far off though.
Yeah, exactly. I think
because wasn't he with the Browns and he messed up his ankle and then he ended up leaving? Yeah, that's what it was.
He had a few injuries like
that. Yeah, and then he ended up with the Niners mostly, I think. Right?
Yeah. So interesting. Jeez. Yeah. So I would like that. He'd be kind of like an upgraded Arthur Mollett, if you will.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so that's corner, and again, I think they're going to invest in that in the draft regardless. Could be day 1, could be day 2.
It's just how early do they have to do it?
Exactly.
I think that's going to be based on can they get one of those actual premium players. Carlton Davis seems more like the likely like younger, but also big contract. Like, I just don't think many teams are going to be able to get in the market for Jackson just money wise, and Davis might. Sure. He might still get a bump because of that market, but I don't think it's going to be nearly.
Carlton, the market value on Spot Rack is 19.6. So
really 19.6.
Yeah.
I was thinking closer to like 16, 17, but maybe it's going to be more than that. That's interesting. Okay.
Teams need corners.
Tremaine Johnson, remember his contract with the Jets?
I think I was like looking up comps for the draft and I came across Tremaine Johnson. I was like, wow, that guy was a thing. who
Yeah, he
got a
was.
lot of money.
A lot of, I think it was like 5 years, 70,
It
85
was
million, 75
nuts
million.
at the time.
Something stupid. Yeah, I
can't
don't want to
find
repeat of
they
that, but
don't
I
have
don't know.
they don't think I don't think they don't have a market value for Kyle Fuller, unfortunately. So that's
I assume less than like $9 million for
yes,
a
yeah.
year
I mean that I
because
think that'd be great.
yeah, I'd be fine with that too. Yeah.
So I also have offensive tackle down, and this would be specifically right tackle because I think
Yeah.
they really and that's the kind of trouble with this draft class and at offensive tackle because a lot of the guys are left tackle
Yeah.
only, basically.
Yeah, you're projecting otherwise.
Especially the
Yeah.
guys they can have a shot at. Like
Right. Yeah.
Evan Neal could play right tackle, but they're not going to get Evan Neal.
Right, yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Yeah, like a lot of the guys later on are mostly left tackles, and I don't think they want to move. So like Trent Brown is one. I don't think they'll make that move. That's going to be a lot
No,
of money.
it's even with his like. I still think probably a little bit too much
And
money just
and
to.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you're aware of this, but I don't think the Steelers would be too thrilled about the tattoo he has on his arm.
I don't. I don't know.
I'll send it to you because it's something we shouldn't
Okay.
talk about
Gotcha. Okay.
on the
Well,
kids show.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Morgan Moses, another kind of veteran
Yeah.
offensive tackle. Uh, again, just play right tackle, play it locked down, no concerns. That's
Right.
why, and I think he would be relatively cheap because he's a bit of an older player.
Yeah, just get him on a cheap deal. Try to give him a guaranteed shot at starting. He'll probably like that. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, here we go. This is a good image of it. I'll be sending it to you.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Yeah.
so other ones, Andrew Wiley and Joseph Noteboom. These would kind of just be backups to probably supplant Banner, but maybe not. They're not going to, be the best players.
I still wonder. Like we've talked about, like this. I'd like him to get cut at this point if they're not going to play him.
Banner.
Yeah, just because
I mean, based on Colbert's comments at the combine, they seem to want to do something with him.
Well, I mean, if at that point, then play him. Like,
Yeah,
if you're gonna,
I guess
that's what I'll have to say. Like, I don't care if you keep him, but play him then. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to see him on the bench. I don't want, like, unless he literally can't play, give him a
Yeah.
chance to play or get rid of him because
Yeah.
there's no reason to keep a $5 million tackle that doesn't play.
Yeah, I just sent it to you in
yeah.
Slack, so I'll
Gotcha.
get your live reaction as I
Huh.
read off some more names for the next question. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
that's
thing.
fun. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm down with it. Anyway. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so the other one I want to see them invest at least like just a lower level guy is wide receiver because, like I said, like it is Deontay, Chase Claypool, and basically Cody White. There's nobody else. So I don't think they're gonna spend big on a guy like DJ Chark, who's probably gonna get a big contract, but some of these lower guys, a Rashard Higgins, a Zach Pascal, Cedric Wilson, whose dad played for the Steelers back in the day. Even maybe spend a little bit, get a Marquez Valdez-Scantling who can stretch the field vertically.
Yeah, I saw a report about 10 million possibly for him.
Really?
I can't believe that. Like, I understand like his skill set is interesting, and he's been a little bit more consistent since he dropped every other pass a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But again, deep threat is something that's important, but not that important when it's pretty much what he does. That's it.
That's fair.
Like, and I am interested in Traquan Smith. You have here too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like him.
He's
a lot.
an interesting guy too.
Mm-hmm.
To just bring in as like a flyer, like see if he can make something happen after his time with the Saints. Because obviously you'd like for him to have been more productive considering the lack of receiver talent they've had without Thomas in there. Mm-hmm. But still, I'd take a flyer on him, especially with what we have right now.
Yeah. Let's see what the market value on Scantling is. Come on. Yeah, I mean, 8.7 million annually.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know if we really need to do
a little too much, but yeah, I just want to see them bring in at least one name from outside the organization, just to have a third guy. And again, I think they might take a late round draft pick there because it's a pretty deep class. There will be some names that should be still available in later rounds.
Yeah, I'm expecting that. Yeah.
Inside linebacker, somebody to kind of be the buck for Devin Bush's Mac linebacker, and I don't think that's Bobby Wagner, even though he just got cut.
Yeah, I hate whenever all these moves are made and Steelers are like, Steelers fans like, I'm like, we don't do this. Okay?
It also seems like that Wagner was not himself this last year.
It's true.
He took a step backwards, so it might be kind of the sign of a decline. He could come back, and I'm not sure I want to invest a lot of money there. But another few veterans that got cut recently: Anthony Hitchens, Jordan Hicks, and Kyle Van Noy. Van Noy obviously knows Brian Flores very well.
Yes.
He's a very interesting player. He does a lot of rushing, so pairing him with Highsmith and Watt gives you a guy that can, do a lot of things that frankly, like the Steelers kind of have their linebacker role set, whereas
Yeah.
Van Noy would be a bit of a hybrid, which would be interesting to see. I think could be fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think that like especially with Flores being there, he would at least know how to implement him and allow us to use him in some meaningful way.
Yeah.
So
The other guy, and there was some talk like Dante Hightower is also a free agent this year, and apparently I think the Steelers really liked him. I think it was Keith Butler who was like pounding the table for him, but they overruled him and took David DeCastro. So both
it
picks worked out.
worked out pretty well
Yeah.
still, but yeah, I mean,
but I think he's definitely on the wrong side of his career, and
he
I
is,
don't want to pay
at
him a
this
ton of
point.
money.
Yeah,
But
it's
the other Patriots linebacker is a free agent is Juwan Bentley.
Juwan Bentley, yep.
Bentley is a limited player. We'll say
Yep.
that. He's 6'2", 260. He's a big boy, but if you need somebody to be the thumper to stop the run up the middle, that's your guy.
That's what exactly like that's where we need to find a role player at that spot for now, right? Because like realistically, I'm hoping, and this is part of the reason why I'm really hoping a corner gets picked up that's at least got pretty good value in him for the team and guaranteed starter. I want to see one of these linebackers come off the board with their second pick. Like that's what I'm hoping to see.
Yeah,
like,
so
that's really what I'm hoping to see.
Yeah, there is some good value there, and I think I think that Travis Jones might be off the board for us now. I think
that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah,
that's which is why I'm saying
yeah.
that.
So, and I'm not sure Leo Chenal's there, but our guy Troy Anderson.
We're big Troy Anderson people here.
Yeah,
yep.
exactly. So
but Chenal would be great too. I mean, as a Wisconsin fan, I know what he's capable of. I mean, he's a very interesting player from build wise. Like, so either way, but I'm hoping that that's where we go with one of those mid.
Yeah,
like
a few other more bigger type linebackers, not as big as the Belichick guys, but Gerard Davis, Alexander Johnson, and Anthony Walker Jr. All like run stuffer primarily guys, but I know Anthony Walker Jr. played quite well for the Browns this year, just kind of being the man in the middle for their defense, being the communicator. So getting him would, in addition to hurting a rival, would be, help just be great. Take something away from them, and he kind of solidifies the middle of the defense. That'd be great. Alexander Johnson was hurt a good amount this year, but he is a really good downhill linebacker, very Vince Williams-esque. And then two guys that are more Devin Bush-esque are Jayon Brown and Kenny Young. They've kind of been in and out of lineups, but I like them as kind of those more athletic play in space linebackers, which may not be what the Steelers are looking for exactly. So maybe they aren't.
Yeah, I think they're still hoping Bush can be that guy. So like it's bring someone in who might be able to outplay him. Might not be what they want as far as his development goes, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, and then the last one I have is running back because I want to see them bring somebody in who can competently back up Najee Harris, somebody not named Kalen Ballage or Benny Snell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I loved Ronald Jones when he came out in the draft.
Me too. And I was really disappointed for a while. And honestly, he kind of turned it around for the most part, honestly.
A little bit. Like here and there. It's been a rocky road.
It's sporadic, but yeah.
But as like a backup change of pace guy, he'll turn 25 before this year. So he's still really young.
Yeah. He brings an element that he could create a big play.
And his market value is $2.7 million.
Yeah, that's
nothing.
That'd
be great.
But that's the whole thing with him, though, right? Is the fact that at least he has some playmaking ability occasionally. Like he shows athleticism.
He has that home run. He can hit home runs, which is something Najee hasn't really done.
Yeah, and it's just not his game. Like he's not going to be that guy. So having somebody who can do that and has at least shown that they're an NFL player, unlike pretty much everyone else we have on the roster right now besides him, would be really nice to have.
Another guy who could kind of be more that home run threat and be a pass catcher is Chase Edmonds, who's going to be a free agent this year. And
I love Chase Edmonds.
His market value is only $5.2 million average annual salary, so that'd be a pretty good deal too.
Yeah, the only problem is I know he won't play that much with us compared to other places, and I want to see more of Chase Edmonds.
Fair enough.
So maybe that's me being selfish, but at the same time, I feel like I feel like he's going to get a bigger role other places, so that might not be.
Yeah. Another pass catching back is JD McKissick. He played for the Commanders this last year, but I'm not sure he's their type. He's much smaller, but his market value is only 3.5 average per year. Could be less than that.
Probably less, honestly.
He'd definitely be an explosive threat out of the backfield that could be a really nice change of pace for Najee Harris. So that'd be interesting. Anybody else, any other positions you think they could look at or people that you'd be interested in them bringing in?
I mean, realistically, like position-wise, I think that's pretty much where we're going to be focusing on, at least guys that are expected to have a role, right? Like signings of guys that should either have a chance to start or at least play a good chunk of time. So really, I mean, safety is one thing where like if Edmonds doesn't come back, which
Mhm.
I still think he is at this point. Personally, I just don't
Yes.
think. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
didn't
they're going to do
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't mention that because I mean, there was a comment from Minka. I don't know when it was, but I think it was recent saying like, "I love playing next to Edmonds.
Yes.
I really want him to come back." Um, so I really hope they bring him back, and I think
Yeah.
that I'm gonna see if they have a market value for him because I think they can bring him back, um, for a relatively reasonable price that still allows them to be active.
Yeah.
They do not have a market value for him, so that's
Interesting.
unfortunate.
But no, like with him, like it just makes too much sense. You develop this guy. I know they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which I was kind of a fan of at the time, just because I didn't expect him to develop to
Mhm.
the point he has. But he's a legitimate starting safety now, and to let that go for no reason other than just because you don't want to pay him, not a fan of that. And it's not what the Steelers typically do.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I'm trying to see. So let's see. There's a few. So there's a market value for Jabril Peppers and Marcus May. I'm going to see what they are going to theoretically. Jabril Peppers' market value is 12.5 million.
sounds
Marcus
about
May's
right.
is 7.5. So
Okay.
let's call it even and say you give Terrell Edmonds 4 years, 10 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking something along like the 4 years, like
Yeah,
35 to 40 million. Yeah,
yeah.
something around
That's
there.
I think that's
That's
more than fair.
again, if Minka says he likes playing with him, that's all I need
Yeah,
to know.
and
That's
and
sort of
he
enough.
really has gotten better every
He
year.
has, yeah. He
And
was not a liability at
he's
all.
still gotta be
25?
he's
I
still
think he's
because he was
25.
super young when he came out, so he's gonna be
Pretty sure he's
pretty
25
young.
this year, maybe
I'm
26.
going back to, his page. Here we go. 25 he just turned 25, like,
Just turned
2 months
25,
ago.
right. Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
he's got, still a long career ahead of him. Yeah, I really hope they bring him back because he's just getting better every year.
It's just a piece we don't have to replace then. Like,
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
don't let again, the Steelers are not known to do this, which is kind of why I'm thinking it's going to happen, but don't let a player that already knows the system and has already been a proven starter in the system go when you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
Pretty much what it
and
comes down.
this safety class is I think it's definitely more about like you said, exactly. Like you don't want to have to teach another guy the new system, get him acclimated with Minka. So I
Yeah,
definitely
there's
agree
some
with you there.
safeties I like, and maybe if you do, even if you do bring him back, maybe you do not draft someone early, but take a flyer on somebody later in the
Yeah,
draft. But you don't. I don't want to have to force like
no,
anybody into a new starting
no. If you
spot in
let
the
him go, then you
secondary.
need to
Yeah,
invest at one of the top three selections of
yeah, and I don't want to
safety.
have to do that. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. All right, that'll do it for us this week. We will probably be back at some point. Well, we're not sure when this is going to come out as a podcast, but we'll be back next week. I think the Steelers will make some moves. Some guys will be leaving the Steelers for sure. So we'll recap some of that later in the week, probably. Because I think free agency begins Tuesday, I think, or is it Monday?
Monday is when the tampering period starts, and then
Okay.
Wednesday is the new league year. So we'll probably hear reports of signings on Monday and Tuesday, but we won't get any
Okay.
confirmations until Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll probably come back later in the week just to let kind of the dust settle, and
When
then
hopefully the
we'll
big names, yeah,
Yeah,
especially.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We'll let the dust settle a little bit on the big names, and then we'll, be able to talk about, what have the Steelers done, what guys did they not go after, uh, who was their quarterback. We probably, hopefully, we still don't know, honestly.
Honestly, I think the best thing is unless we get like a small deal done really early on in free agency with somebody, it's probably good news if we don't know the first week or
Yes, I
so
would.
of free agency.
I can't. I can't believe I'm saying this, but at this point
Yeah,
next week, I would still like Mason Rudolph to be the presumed starter.
probably. Yeah, I mean, realistically, so we'll see what happens though.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll hope to have you back next time.